Hello, welcome back to the Corporate Burnouts. Hey, Mandy, how are you?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I am good. I am good. I am all geared up to paint a parking spot this weekend.
Oh yeah, senior parking spot. I love that.
Yep, I
We
know.
didn't do that here, and
I didn't
that's
get to
so
do that
cool.
either.
Yeah,
Not as a
that's
kid
cool.
anyway. Anywho, so yeah, we got it all designed. Heard back the design is approved. Went to the paint store, got all of our paints. Of course, she would pick a design that needs 8 different colors.
Mhm.
So that's a
Yeah.
lot of paint,
Mhm.
but I'm excited about it. We've got 2 weekends to get it done. So we're like trying to do it early morning so that, we're not in
Oh my
105
gosh.
degree blistering heat.
I wish that you guys
So
could do it today here because it is like there's no humidity. It's a real
I
nice day outside.
can't
Don't get those
relate.
very
It's
much.
wild here.
Yeah.
Well, we had a week of like really, really mild weather
Mhm.
last week,
Mhm.
like highs in the low 80s, and it was
But
like
it rained
overcast
though.
and
Yeah.
and rainy.
Mhm.
So now this week the heat is back and the mosquitoes are like, "Oh, hey, we're here to play." And I'm
Yes.
like, "Go away." Anyway, what
I
about
hate
you?
them.
What you got going on? I'm over here playing high school.
I know. No, I think that's so fun. So last night we celebrated Samantha's friend Ellie's birthday and I made a cake. So I've always been a baker, right? But I
Uh-huh.
made things mostly out of a box. And then in the last couple of years I started to say, I'm not going to make the box blueberry muffins anymore. I'm going to make them from scratch, right? I'm not going to make brownies anymore from the box. I'm going to make them from scratch. And that's been fun because they're just as good, but they have less of the stuff and the preservatives and that kind of stuff in it, right? Well, and it's more fun to bake that way because it's just actual baking
Yeah,
instead of
because you're
just throwing stuff.
actually
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you actually get to add ingredients instead of just
Yeah.
dumping a mix.
Right. So I still had never made a cake from scratch.
Uh-huh.
Like I have made a box cake and made the icing from scratch. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like I've tried a lot of things. I've never made a cake from scratch. It was supposed to be 2 of the rounds, right? And then you
Yeah.
ice both of them, put them on top
Uh-huh.
of each other. Like that's the kind of cake that I found the recipe for. And I'm just going to skip to the end and say it was really good, right? It was really
Good.
good. But it was so when you make a cake from the box, it's very runny, right? You like dump
Uh-huh.
it into the thing and it's very runny and you like have to get it over there without like it, splashing
Yeah.
over the sides. Well, this cake, the batter felt more like cookie dough or like icing. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Like
so more dense.
it was very dense. And I was like, I don't trust this because it didn't say in the recipe anywhere. It didn't say anywhere that it was not going to be like any other cake batter you have ever dealt with in your life.
Doesn't tell you the consistency to look for.
No, nothing like that. And so I'm just like, just put them in the oven. Like, hopefully it turns out.
Guess
If
we'll
not,
see.
we
Yeah.
don't have cake, like that's fine. So the cakes tasted really good. It was also unclear, and maybe I just didn't read it. I'm not sure. But that you were supposed to let sit for 2 hours. Like, why does this cake need to sit for 2 hours? Maybe all cake needs to sit for 2 hours before you try and pull out of the pan. I tried to pull it out probably an hour afterwards. It might have been less. I'm not sure. And I lost half of a cake. So like, like it like tore half of one off. So anyway, we had one cake and that's fine. It didn't need to be a double-decker cake.
Yeah.
And, it was fine. But yeah, it's sometimes we find things unclear because they're unclear. And sometimes it's because we didn't read or seek to understand
or really listen to the instructions.
So I don't know who was to blame for that because I didn't go back and read that, but
it'd be
either
very
way,
interesting now. You should go back and check yourself.
I should.
Was I the problem or did I not have clear
So
expectations?
I
going
know that
into
I was the
this?
problem because I did look back and it said 2 hours on how long to, and maybe people who bake know, like you can't take a cake out of the pan that early, I don't know. We are going to
I think
eat
it's a
that cake
temperature
though.
thing.
Yes, it is. It's
2
a
hours
temperature
because
thing.
it needs to cool
Yes.
and the cooling process changes the consistency. Like it does kind of make sense, but you
I
have
get
to,
that.
somebody's got to tell you that.
I wasn't
to even
trained.
know.
No, I wasn't
Yeah,
trained.
exactly.
But Dan convinced me. He's like, you're not just gonna like throw that away. So I still iced it, and we're gonna eat it with a fork. Like we're just gonna, yeah. It still tastes like cake.
Or you could like put the icing on there and dough it up and make like cake balls out of it.
Ooh, well,
ideas.
yeah, I love that. See, things can come out of not knowing what the hell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it does.
So this really leads into we have a guest this week, which we're very excited about. And her
Yes.
name's Lynnae Brown. And Lynnae is an expert at finding clarity in your job, because what she has found through her career and what our minds were blown by is that most people who are unhappy at work is because they're just confused. They don't know exactly what their job is. There's
Yeah.
no good expectation, and that is miserable. And we found out that was our biggest problem too. besides
Yeah.
that we had to travel so much, that was the ultimate thing that really got both of us out of that job.
Yeah.
But
not knowing when you're doing a good job because you
Mhm.
don't know what a good job looks like what even is the job is so hard. So I'm really excited about having the conversation with her about if you are one of those people stuck in that spot going, I don't really know if I'm doing a good job because I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing or what this is supposed to look like. Hopefully, through this conversation, Lynnae will spark some really great questions that you can ask yourself to figure out if, what you're in control of and how you can make that better.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's bring her in.
All right.
Welcome in, Lynnae Brown. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Okay. I want to introduce Lynnae with your whole, so everyone knows exactly who you are. All right.
Okay.
So Lynnae Brown is a work navigation strategist with more than 10 years of experience in peer support workforce development. She trained people with mental health recovery experience for the workplace and advised employers on how to hire and support them effectively. That work gave her a unique view of how workplace culture, unclear expectations, and underdeveloped management practices can create distress and self-doubt in employees. Today, she helps people across industries orient to difficult work situations so they can gain clarity, reduce stress, and make intentional choices about how to relate to work in a way that protects their health, integrity, and commitment to doing good work. Welcome, Lynnae.
Thank you so much.
What
Thank
a
you for
big
that.
job.
Yeah. It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
It is. I think it's so interesting that the work that I did for that decade was really helpful because it helped me see the workplace much differently, because the people that I was training were people who didn't have a lot of work experience and also had mental health recovery challenges that they were dealing with. And so they had to figure out ways to take care of themselves in workplaces that were not hospitable to people with mental health conditions. And so that's when I started really paying attention to workplace culture in general and sort of preparing people, the people that I was trained to go into the workplace. And I thought to myself, what we're doing here, everyone could use really, because this has nothing to do with mental health. This is very across the field, across the board. I mean, the idea of people being confused about what their job is something that a lot of people face. It has nothing to do with mental health. It's just that in that particular situation, my role was about helping people get clear that it's not them. It's the workplace. That's the difference.
And so much
right?
is the workplace, right? And people need to realize that. That's huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know that we're going to go through this probably much deeper than this, but as an overarching topic, I'd really like to dive into what that hidden cost is to an unclear workspace, right? So many of us are in this workspace and you just want to do a good job, right? And when you don't know if you're doing that, do you have that broken out? Are there very specific costs along the way, whether that's to the actual workplace, to the company that you work for, or to the individual?
Absolutely. It's for everyone. Unclear work conditions mean that you're going to probably overcompensate, do things that you're probably way beyond what you're supposed to be doing because you're so busy trying not to be wrong. Because what ends up happening is when you don't know when you're really uncertain, your imagination starts trying to figure out what things could be and then start to strategize for all those different scenarios because you don't know what right looks like. You don't know what correct is. And so that's the kind of energy you expend to do that, right? And then if everyone's unclear, if everyone's doing that, then that makes it really hard for you to even figure out what the company mission is. What is the reason for your department? What is even the reason for your job? If you can't answer those questions,
that's so chaotic, right?
Yes, it's very chaotic.
Everyone's just
so
doing
familiar.
Whatever.
It's so familiar where it's all of your energy, you've got so much going out, but it's going out into the universe instead of in a straight line to the target of what you're trying to accomplish because you don't know what you're trying to accomplish.
No,
That's
you
exactly
don't. Right. And I'll just give you an insight into how we grew up in corporate. So our job was field marketing. Now, there were several different teams in the field marketing department and that were all part of the marketing department. And then there were teams within teams that we were on, like in the field with the different locations. And so our boss was the CMO, like our ultimate like person was the CMO of the company, and he had a vision for what our job was. He probably helped write the job description, right? And then, but there were a lot of other people who we reported to in different ways that had a different view of what our job was. And so he would say, this is how we, do your bonus. So this is what results we need from you. That didn't line up though with some of the expectations that were put on us, right? So we're trying to hit this over here while hitting this over here. And then we're upsetting this boss over here because we're not doing anything to do with what she wants. And then this person is like, you're never here. And we're like, well, but the expectations for our job are to be here and here. So it was always trying to please somebody, that one didn't pay us, like wasn't the ultimate person who paid us, but had a lot of control over the happiness of our job,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of pressure to be a team player with these certain other areas, so it was a lot of expectations, and we didn't know which ones, like they really needed to get on the same page is all that we wanted. All we ever wanted was for them to get on the same page, and they wouldn't, right? Because of a lot of different politics, I believe, and just that with middle management, you know what I mean? Like it's impossible for everyone to get on the same page sometimes. So we struggled a lot with that.
Yeah, those leaders were given the autonomy, though that autonomy was kind of a little bit false in that, okay, these marketing coaches, like this girl's going to work for you. She's going to do what you want her to do. And their direction to us was like, if you make him happy, then you make me happy. But I'm going to measure your success based on this, 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 and this. Well, this, and this may not be the goals of this person that you told me to make happy. And oh, by the way, I work for 3 of this guy that you told me to make happy. So I got to make 3 different people happy in 3 different ways. But my ultimate success that my money is tied to is going to be on these factors over here. That do they even care about? Well, I'm going in 15 different directions, and you've created a situation where we have 16 chiefs, and I'm one Indian.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate
really
about
sums it up.
What I appreciate about this distinction, however, too, is like you said it beautifully, how you had to be oriented around the personal preferences of a bunch of people and around the job description itself. And those two are always going to be in conflict. If the people, and you saw it in real time, if the people in power are more interested in you being deferential to them and doing what they want as they want it, it is very, and of course, what they want doesn't line up with what your job is, which what you were hired to do. That ends up being the ultimate, like just pulling people apart. And I, I'm sorry to hear that that's what you went through. But yeah, that unfortunately happens quite a bit. Yes.
Yeah, it felt like Stretch Armstrong. Like for sure.
And I think that it probably is very normal, right? So I think that what I want to understand is that, a lot of people probably don't know that this is happening. Like we knew exactly what was happening because it was really blatant. But for some people, they don't know that this is happening. They don't know that they're unclear. So they just feel confused, right? And so I've always said when it comes to dating, for instance, it was like, if you are confused, something's not right. You know what I mean? Like if this person is confusing you in some way, they probably don't like you,
That's a no.
And
It's true. It's a no.
They probably don't like you.
Right. Because
they're just not that into
it's
you.
really clear. When something's clear, it's easy. Things are easy. Yeah. So if you're confused, I don't think that it's probably you, is what I want people to hear.
I would absolutely agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. Because here's the thing that I think is interesting is I think it's too normalized in workplaces that you're hired and there's a part of you and it's almost expected that you figure out what your job is. I think that's so strange because it's like, you were hired, you saw this job description, then you said, yes, I can do that. Yes, I'd like to do that. And then you're hired and then you get there and you're like, okay, it's nothing like the job description that I read, or the things they really want done are like number 12 and 13 on the list and not the number 1 that you saw on the list of the job description. And that happens unfortunately a lot of the time. And I really appreciate that understanding that first and foremost, it's like if you're at a job and you're confused, it is the workplace, because I'm a big believer in that. whoever has the power, the people who created the jobs are the ones who are supposed to be able to tell you what you're doing.
Yes.
What you're doing
is responsibility.
Absolutely. With power, there's responsibility. And so when you have a boss telling you figure it out, that's already a problem. And you may not have the solution to the problem right away, but I just love knowing that, making that distinction that this is the workplace, this is not me. So let me start there. That right there gives you agency and power and takes everything off of your sense of self-worth and your capabilities and feeling like you can't do the job. Because if you can say to yourself, this is the workplace, this is not me. This is like, that's a great place to start. A great place to start.
Yeah. And I think that some people will always be looking for excuses, right? But this is a big deal, right? So I did an interview with somebody. I was looking to get off the road because our job, we traveled a lot. We traveled always. And so I wanted to get off the road. And so I was interviewing to be an executive assistant. And I ended up deciding that didn't make sense for me for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons was that this leader was basically like, you're going to have to guess everything. You know what I mean?
By the way, I'm not clear. So good luck.
Right. Well, and I did a big group what do you call those? Panel interview. Yeah, a group interview, a panel interview with people that had worked with him for years that he trusted. And basically they were like, here's what's going to happen with this person. And he's in the room. He knows exactly who he is, right? And he's in the room and he's like, yeah, that's me. And they're like, he's going to say, hey, I need you to figure this out, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it. And you're just going to have to figure it out. And it's like, I'm good at figuring things out. But if I don't know what to figure out, then I'm going to fail 100% of the time. Right. And
have anxiety about it along the way, which you don't need.
Yes. And all of these people who are in this interview are like, yeah, that's exactly how he is. And that's exactly how this is going to go. Can you handle that? And I'm like, can I handle not knowing anything about anything and then having to figure out the answers to those things? Right. No, I don't think, like, I love a challenge, but that's a lot, And so ultimately that was not the job for me because I can get so much done if I know the plan. If I'm confused, I spin my wheels, right? Like I am a productive person if I know what's going on. And I think that a lot of people are like that. Like they can go head first as long as they know what is happening.
Yeah, and so many things get in the way of that too, right? Because, like, for instance, like when I was helping people figure out the folks, especially when I started thinking about workplace development and how to help people adjust to workplaces that weren't clear, and helping people recognize that, okay, this is not you, it is the workplace, and how do you get acclimated to a workplace that's very chaotic? It doesn't have clear boundaries. It can't tell you, like, they can tell you if you're doing something wrong, but they can't tell you what's right. So you have to trying to guess, and then you guess and guess until someone goes, that's not right. And you're like, okay, well, what is? What is?
We deal with clients like that all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think a couple things, and I want to give people the benefit of the doubt and be like very generous. And I also feel like it's also a way of not taking accountability when you say to people when, like that job interview, that you had, even though you could say, well, thank you for telling me up front, I don't want this, that is helpful. You appreciate that. But at the same time, it's kind of, it's just displaying the dysfunction. And instead of like trying to like make it functional, they're gonna say, we're gonna keep the dysfunction and you just have to deal with the dysfunction. Okay.
Yeah. Can you handle it?
Yeah. Can you handle it?
And what I think what happens a lot of the time and what happened in that situation is I'm not going to have time, nor am I going to make it a priority to communicate with you.
Yes.
Right. So you're going to have to figure it out. Yeah. I will not prioritize that. And I think that's why so many, there are lots of different situations, I'm sure, for people having unclear expectations and not knowing what the job is. And some of it is to keep you confused so that you just keep doing whatever they say.
Yes.
Some of it is because they don't have time, nor do they want to communicate. So they're just throwing it all out there, like, whatever, do it. And some of it is just lack of knowledge of the how. How do you be clear with people? Because I think it's just like anything else. Once you get down a road, you can get really comfy in that discomfort, and you can be like, no, this is normal. Yeah, it's normal.
Exactly. It's normalized. It's exactly normalized. I think the confusion actually, okay, now I'm going to be less generous, but I think the confusion is also a way of keeping power, right? If you are the person in charge and you basically don't know what you're doing, you don't want anyone to know you don't know what you're doing, it's better to have you confused as well. So that way I can keep on top of being able to tell you, oh, you're doing this wrong. Even though you never found out what right was. I don't think it's, again, I'm not saying it as a sound of viciousness, but I do think it's kind of like.
It's them being self-protective.
It's being self-protective. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's being self-protective. It's being like, especially if someone's been in a position for a minute and as years go by and they're confused and they don't want to admit they've been confused the whole time.
Yeah.
There's that too.
Is real life.
Right.
Well, yeah.
That's it, right? It's like the longer you're in a position, you realize you've been confused the whole time. And then you probably also, like, I know I had supervisors myself who instead of looking at the work itself and figuring out like what worked and what didn't work, they ended up making the job about their preferences. And then when they do make the job about their preferences, then you as the worker are just always looking to them for their preferences. And then it's hard to figure out what good looks like, what complete looks like until they say so. Now that's a very long work day.
Oh, I hate that.
That's when work
It's
gets to be a lot. It's very draining. You never know when you're done. You never know what looks good. You never know when it's complete because no one tells you until they tell you.
Yeah.
Till they tell you. And if you don't have any shared standards to go by, you can't tell yourself, oh, I'm done. Like, this is done. This is complete. And that is a problem. Like, if you have a job that you don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, what buck stops with you, what your job looks like complete, if you can't answer the basic questions about your job, then I'm going to say it's definitely a workplace issue.
But like that whole scenario that you just mentioned, like if I put myself in those shoes, that just creates this situation where I am always doubting myself.
That's right.
Am I doing a good job? Am I even doing my job? Like, where actually do I stand? And there's nothing to measure. And like a lot of people in corporate America or even just in the workforce in general, a lot of your self-worth kind of naturally comes from your performance at work and the value that you're adding. So if you can't clearly see that because you don't ever know if you're hitting a target because it's moving or because somebody else is controlling it and you don't know when it's going to pop out.
Yeah.
Like that really starts to mess with who you are, like on the inside, like at the core and how you view your own performance. So what would you say are the stories that we tell ourselves, the lies maybe that we tell ourselves when those expectations aren't clear and maybe it's already been normalized?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, especially with high performers. We tend to like want to do everything ourselves. We see ourselves as being very capable and on top of everything and want it to be that way. Being very determined to be so, right? Yeah. Very determined to do so. And so you're like, if this isn't clear, well, I'm going to just figure it out myself. And then you just start, throwing spaghetti against the wall until something sticks sometimes, right? There's no real efficient, succinct way of doing your job.
Wasted energy.
Wasted energy beyond belief. And so I would say something, I want to go back to that whole self-worth thing because I think this is really important to me too. When it comes to how to assess your self-worth, you should really keep in mind who's doing the assessing or what's assessing you. And if you're in a work environment that can't even tell you what your job is, I wouldn't allow that to tell you what your self-worth is. Like, that's the bottom line.
Fair point.
No,
Fair
not
point.
at all. But
not at all.
Still,
I mean, even though it makes sense, it does because I feel the same way. Like my work was really important to me and I found a sense of self from my work a lot. And I also kind of got over time that these goalposts are moving. Like I can never please people. I can never say, no one ever lets me go, oh, you did a good job, and end of story. I can't allow my self-worth to be attached to that. I can't allow my self-worth to be attached to something I have no agency over.
Yes.
Like what I have agency over is I showed up, I made a good faith effort to do a good job. That's where my self-worth is. If you tell me I'm doing a sucky job, but then you didn't tell me what right looks like.
Yeah, who's the problem?
Yeah, it's a problem. And you might have, and yes, you still sometimes will get the blame because you're the one on the lower rung or whatever. And that's how power works out sometimes in the workplace. But I'm just talking from your own like personal place. If you're the worker feeling like you're failing or feeling like you're not living up to things like that. That's what I want to say. It's like, if you can just say to yourself, I say this is all very confusing and they don't know either. So I'm okay. I don't know what it is. They don't either. Okay. Like this is a workplace thing because like, again, people in power, the people who created the job, people who created the company, the people who created the product, created the service, created whatever, they're the ones that should be able to tell you what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't tell you that, technically it ends up being you trying to figure it out, but at least you have that distinction. It's like, actually, it's your job to tell me what this job is, but okay, you don't know? Okay, great. You know what I mean? I'll figure out something. I'll find a way to be useful. I'll find a way to make a difference. But I would also say with that, if you know that situation you're in, it's even more important that you take care of yourself. It's even more important to look for ways to be as succinct and as efficient as possible and actually hold people in power accountable for what they tell you, what they're doing. Because I was just wondering, because I have a question for you when you're talking about the job you had before with your CMO. He was your direct boss, you said? Like he was the one you had to report to, and that you had other people that
he wasn't our direct report.
Okay.
There were layers between.
Yeah, but he was the one who made the decisions on if we got raises and how our bonus structure went and things like that.
Did you ever have this is a question I'm just wondering, do you ever feel like you could talk to them and say directly to him, like, I understand you have the power over my benefits and my raises and things like that, and yet I don't have a standard to live into so that I can get the raise and bonus and be sure I can get it that way. Can you help us figure out like who I'm supposed to be listening to? Did you have those conversations and he just said, oh, I don't know? Or
we all did about a million times in a million different ways, individually and as a group. And it was like, listen, guys, this is very simple. We're going to measure these things that are important. Like, obviously, the goals here is to make sales, right? We want all of these locations to be successful. So we're going to look at these numbers, and that will determine if what you're doing is working. But in order to determine how you should do that, you need to go to this guy. And if this guy's happy, then I'm happy. There's more than one way to skin a cat. So skin it however you want to, but here's what we want to see over here. And it's like, okay, but
no, just more confusion is all you're saying.
Yeah.
It was just... Yes, so it didn't work.
It was very much a pass the buck. And I don't think it was intended to be that way. It sounds like we're like shit talking, but that's not that's not the intention.
It's just
it
facts.
really was intended for the leaders that we were reporting to in the field to have autonomy over the way their locations were running. Because as you know, in any business, especially a nationwide or even a global business, the area in which you're in will determine sometimes how you can do a job effectively based on the market, right?
Yeah.
So things did have to be a little bit different. So they were given autonomy to make some of those distinctions and give directions based on those things. But that autonomy was like, okay, we're going to scrap all that. I know this is the way the company wants it done, but we're going to do it like this. And this is what I want you to see. And oh, by the way, while you're at it, I also want you to plan this meeting for me that has nothing to do with marketing at all. Okay.
Or sales.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where things just got blurry, right?
Yes.
And so I think that it's very important to, so I run my business very different than a corporation because it's very small. So I understand that things have to be different. There is not a lack of communication because there's only one boss, right? In corporations, you have the layers of bosses, the layers of management. And so I think that it's easier for me to be clear about an expectation about what the job is. And then also I can be very unclear. I'm like, let's think about this. And Mandy's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I think we're going to do SEO now. And she's like, okay, so it can be. And then it's like, just figure out how we're going to do that. It's like, so there's a big difference in a startup. It's like, this is like, I can't tell you what your job is because it's going to change. Right. But we're growing together, so I have to think that that's okay. But at the end of the day, I think that we all have trouble. Specifically, I really want to talk about for another minute, high performers in this situation and how burned out they can get, because we already did episodes about how high performers burn out first because they put this extra pressure on themselves, and then you have all this pressure plus a lot of confusion about what is actually success, and you're asking for a mental breakdown. You know what I mean? Like it has to come,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I'm just also going back to my own lived experience when I was director of this program and I didn't have a lot of support or direction. I had to kind of figure out the job myself in a lot of different ways. And then I had to help the staff figure out their job because my feeling was the following. So I don't know if this is going to answer the question, but my feeling is the following. It's like, if I could design a workplace that was really functional, like if I really wanted to, if I could wave a magic wand and change our workplace, I would make it so that The people on my staff knew exactly what they were doing, why they were doing it, what their job looked like. Here's where it began. Here's where it ends. My focus about your work is that you're doing it efficiently, succinctly, and nothing to waste, and that you can go home at 5 so you can be with your family.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you think.
I would rather do that than pizza parties.
Yeah. Oh my God.
After work drinks. You know what I'm saying? It's like, instead of doing that so-called, the pseudo, like, let's be a family, let's be team players. To me, if I'm your manager, I just want you to be like, this is your job. This is where it begins. This is where it ends. I'm going to do as much as I would do much as I could to make sure you can figure it out yourself, that you knew what your job looked like. And so at the end of the day, when you left at 5, bye, have a good day, see you tomorrow, sort of thing. I mean, that to me is the best way you can care for workers over pizza parties and things like that. Like, that's what I think. It's like, because I just find that, when there's confusion and you're not sure what your job is and the uncertainty is there, you have a low-grade anxiety, you don't trust anyone, you have a really hard time trusting people, and yet you're sitting at a meeting going, hey, we're a big family, we're a team, and you're like, no, we're not. And that's why I say it's more important for me, and I'll be even more clear, because as I talk to more people about my work, I say that it's actually about the tool is orientation, the result is clarity. Orientation just means, in the workplace, exactly what we were just talking about. It's kind of like, what you're doing, why you're doing it, the buck that stops with you, how you are related to everyone in the department and how the department is related to the whole agency. You know exactly what happens when you're not there. You know exactly, like if something's added, you know exactly if it belongs to you or if it belongs to somebody else. Or if you have to talk about it, like, okay, this is something that none of us counted on, so let's talk it out and figure out who's going to do what, sort of thing. But unfortunately, it seems to me that I keep saying over and over again is that the job that is actually applied to is not the same job that's actually needed. So that right there, you're already kind of behind the 8 ball, right? Because you thought the job was one thing and it's something else when you got there. So that's already flexibility. Like, okay, the job is this. Okay. And then you have, say, the other part, which always cracks me up, is the person who had the job before you, their strengths are now part of that job that you didn't realize were part of the job either. Oh, Bob,
it really isn't part of the job.
It isn't. But Bob used to do this all the time, so that we just made it part of your job. And you're like, but that's not part of the job. Oh, but Bob did. The other guy who was here before you, and you're just like, okay, that's, and supervisors allow that to happen. And to me, it's like, this is where you have to stop and say, wait a second. What's the job and who decides? Because the other part too that I found it interesting, what I saw in my job as well and working with people, is that HR has different sets of things that need to be on the job title than the person who actually makes up the job description. And then they also might ask the actual supervisor of the job what they want. So you got 3 people with 3 different viewpoints.
Yep.
Making one job.
That's mostly where the problems lie, right? Everybody wants to have a say, and really the supervisor needs to say what, and maybe that's untrue, but for me, I would want to say what the job is, because this is what we need on our team accomplished, right?
Yes. Yes.
But HR and legal have to go over things and make sure that by the time HR and legal go through things, it no longer looks like what you're actually going to have to do to accomplish the job.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's deciphering that can be a job in and of itself, but what I'd really love to get to the bottom of, or to get out of this, is if I am that person sitting in this moment going, I do not have the clarity and it is affecting me, what do I do about it? Number one, is there something that they should be doing to ask for more clarity? Or if they're not giving it, should they be going to say, well, this is what I understand. Is this true? Or is it something that they should be letting go of completely and continue to, okay, you told me to figure it out, so I'm going to figure it out. But mentally, I need to separate my self-worth or the measuring post of whether or not I'm doing a good job from this particular aspect, because there is unclarity. Where do you go to make the difference?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Again, when we go back to the issue of self-worth, you absolutely have to say to yourself, this can't be attached to my self-worth because it's too much confusion. I can't allow my self-worth to be determined by something that's not clear. If it's not clear, then I can't have you judging my self-worth. That's one thing to take back. When I'm helping people get oriented at a job that's very confusing, there's a couple things I have people do. One of them is, and it sounds so strange, but it's kind of really helpful. I always say to go back to how the job even came to be. Who even thought of the job? Who brought it up? What was the background of the job? What was the intent? What was the purpose? Because the interesting part is you'll often find it started because it was one job that needed to be done, and then a whole bunch of things were added to it because you have to fill up 40 hours. Right?
That is so true.
Right. That's what actually happens with jobs. That's how it usually come to be. So then it becomes, okay, that's a reference point to kind of go from like, this is why this position even came to be. And then you can start looking around about the people who are actually in power to see who actually is in charge of your position itself in terms of formally and informally, meaning the people who can actually evaluate you, who are going to say, look at your performance evaluation and tell you you're good or bad or whatever, and kind of get assessment for what they're looking at. And then you want to look at the informal power. People who are in informal power, what they look like is they're usually the ones who are quiet and competent. They usually have a lot of information, but they keep their heads down because they know that it's too confusing. They don't want to get involved in the melee. Those people are very, very important to talk to about what they've seen, how they see the department, how they see your work, if they give you any information about the department itself. And then you start figuring out what I call positioning. What is your actual positioning? What does it look like? And then if you kind of look at yourself like, almost like you're like a star in a constellation, right? Like, where do I fit in this constellation based on this job description, where it came from, what this boss is saying, what this boss is saying? Where is it converging? Where is it colliding? Where is it not making sense? Because if you're having something that's colliding, that's probably something you need to address and try to figure out how to get that clear. So, for instance, would be like, and again, I'm not sure what anyone's specific experience is, but like if they said like one boss wants it this way, one boss that wants it that way, I always say send an email to both of them and say, I understand this is what you both like, but just so you know, this is how it's going to turn out if I try to do it both ways. Can you please like both of you let me know which one is important? Yeah. You guys have to tell me which way to go, because if I do it this way, this is how it's going to come out. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And neither one of you are going to be happy with it.
Yeah, this to me is a very good place to start. Like, let's first start with the things that are conflicting. Yeah. Right? Where you're like, you tell me to do this, you tell me to do this. Yeah. So let's figure that out, because that's probably the most frustrating part is conflicting instructions, right?
Right. And not just, and the thing is, sometimes people need not to know that they conflict, but they need to know the results of the conflict from your point of view. Because if you say, if you
allow yourself to be the expert.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because you're the one who has to actually do the job. And so you have to explain, you want this and you want this. This is what it looks like in practice. And at the end result, neither one of you are going to have what you want. So you both have to decide which one's more important, or somewhere in the middle, but you have to tell me, because so that way, that's the only way I'll be able to give you what you want. Or give what and I would also say too, here's something else that's something to also consider. And again, it depends on what kind of work environment you're in. But I think there's a third element that sometimes, even though a lot of workplaces tend to center on the preference of management and the power of management, there's also something about the job itself. Like you said in your job, you had a sales quota, like you had sales to kind of lean into. And if you can actually like connect what you're thinking or what you think your job is to the actual sales part of it, so that way you're not just leaning into the preferences of people so much, and say to them, look, you said this is the sales, this is what we have to do. This is how I'm seeing doing it. This is how I see we can do it this way to get that sales result. And if your boss is like, well, no, I want you to do it this way. It's like, I understand you want me to do it that way. What about that way makes it better than what I just said?
Yeah.
I need to know those things, because
that is managing up big time.
That is. And the thing is,
we really need to talk about that.
And you don't say it rudely, just be like, let me know the difference between what I'm doing and how you'd rather it done, that your way is better than mine. I want to see the difference, because this is the best way I know how to do it efficiently, succinctly, I can get it done. Your way, I would take a learning curve of some sort, and I'm not against it. It's just that if you can just tell me what the distinction is. Yeah, I want to understand. I just want to understand what the distinction is. So that way I understand that what you're telling me makes a difference. That usually backs people down a lot of times, like, oh, well, I was just whatever. It's like, yeah, like start putting things back on people who are giving you the information, but not from a sense of like defensiveness, but just like you want them to back it up. Like back up what they're saying based on something that makes sense, not because they like blue over red. You know what I mean? Like something that really...
But that is how bosses are sometimes, like they just have a preference.
And the other thing too is like my feeling is the other part that I find very intriguing as well is having bosses make their preferences like sound like it's fact. That's when I get a little messed up too, when they start acting like, well, this is how it is. This is a fact. It's like, actually, it can be done this way.
That's just your opinion.
It can be done many different ways. It sounds like it's a preference of yours. If that's it, that's fine. But let's call a spade a spade. Like that's a preference. It's not fact. Because that's the other part too that I found, especially especially with, and I guess maybe because I was in social services for many years, a lot of supervisors would always would make things sound like their preferences sound like facts. My favorite tactic when it comes to preferences, facts over preferences, is I had a supervisor once, and they said to me, "Let's sit down and write this email together." Now, he was a new supervisor, and he was absolutely new and new to me. At my job, I'd been in there for years, but he was new. He's like, "Let's write this email together." And I said, "Well, can I just write it for you, and then you could just correct it, and and then we can go from there." Because I had no skin in the game about it. He just wanted this email written to a funder. "Oh, I think it makes more sense that we write this together." And I said to him, "Can you let me know why do we have to write it together?" And he's like, "Well, don't you think it's a better idea?" "It's just a better idea." And then just sat there and made me write the email with him. And it was
it's better just because you said it's better. Like you have actually no reason for it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, when I see people do things like that, the first thing I think of is I'm not sure you know what your job is as a person in power.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not sure you know what I'm supposed to be doing as a person in power.
Yeah. And then there's just ambiguity all over the place, and it trickles down to every level. So everything that you're putting out is you're confused. So then you're confusing the other people who are either receiving the work that you've done or the people that you are influencing in your role, and everybody is confused.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, because it's all just based on preferences. Like there's no structure in any way, right? I think that it's fair as a boss to have preferences, right? But I think that you have to back it up, just like you said earlier, that you can ask, you can challenge things a little bit, like why would we do that when the way that I'm doing it works, and I don't have to learn a new way, and I'm pretty efficient doing it like this, right? Like I think it's fair to push back on people, but also as the boss, I think that it's fair to say, I want to write this together because my brain doesn't work well when I am going off of what you wrote, right? So I won't be able to fix what you said to be exactly what I'm thinking because my brain tunnels down into what you had, and then I can only work off of what you have. So if you don't mind, let's work on this together because we're going to get the very best email. Now, if
and
you
then
I can get on board with, because now you take accountability for it. I need to work this way. This is how I work really well, is working with people on emails.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I can do that. But because I said so. I said so.
I don't want to critique your words. I want them to be authentically mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I need some help with that. This is very different than, no, my way is just better and I'm not going to tell you. That's like the mom saying, because I said so. You're totally right.
It is.
It is.
And I think a lot of the ambiguity comes in with lack of decision ownership, right? I, as the leader, I'm not 100% sure which route we really should be going. So I'm going to give that decision to you, and then you can figure that out so that it can be your fault when it's not right.
Ding, ding,
But
ding, ding,
if
ding.
it's right, we all win as a team and I look great too.
Yeah.
Even now, not in the same scenario, but from a client perspective, it's like, well, you're the expert. I'm going to divert to you. But it's like, well, yeah, but this is your company. This is you're the boss.
Yes.
I'm just doing a task for you. So you got to tell me what you want. Well, I mean, I don't know. You're the expert. What do you think? And it's like, okay, do you want this to be my fault if it doesn't work? What, sometimes it's,
but also
it's difficult.
It really works for clients sometimes if they don't have any expectation at all. They're like, good thinking. You did so good. Here, look, this is great. And some people don't even realize it. They say, you're the expert, run with it. But they actually have some kind of vision in their mind. And then you fail, because they didn't give you.
Because they didn't tell you what they saw in their head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so it is, I think that all of this comes down to, we need to be giving as much expectation as we can, right? And as much clarity to people when doing a job, and we need to ask for it in return. And I mean, that's just the be all end all. But when people feel uncomfortable, right? Like a lot of people who don't feel clarity probably also have a boss who is a handful. You know what I mean? Like that could go hand in hand, right? So if we're in a situation like that, what's the best way to go to this person who is already kind of the pits, You know?
I mean, again, it's really depending on what kind of boss they are, right? Because everyone, you have to kind of, like the whole idea of managing up. You're going to manage people up who are someone who doesn't who's very lovely but doesn't know what's happening, versus somebody who can be very nasty, right? And be very like, well, figure it out, sort of thing. I mean, your approach is going to be very different.
Yeah.
But I would say something that really does help is if you focus on getting oriented in your job as much as possible. Like I was saying earlier, it's kind of like you have an idea of what the job was meant to do. When did it start shifting? Is it based on your bosses shifting? Did something happen in the market that shifted what's adding to your job? You start getting ideas when you understand where the job came from and what's overall supposed to do in the department and how it makes a difference in the company. You can then start making decisions and figuring out for yourself what makes the most sense, so that if you have a boss who isn't clear, you could at least go to them and say, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking is this, and this, and this is the reason why. Don't go with the I don't knows, but at least come with some ideas, and that way they'll just go, oh yeah, that sounds great, and that's whatever. Or if it doesn't sound great, then at least you've come in good faith that you've tried to figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let them tell you, oh no, I don't want that. It's like, okay, then what do you want?
Right.
Because this is what I think what I think it is.
We've had plenty of bosses that will say, don't bring me problems. Bring me solutions. Yeah. Like if there's a problem, bring solutions to the table, and then we'll figure out which one we're going to go with. And I think that is really, really smart. It is very frustrating. It's very frustrating when you're like, okay, I will solve the problem, and then I don't need to come to you at all. But okay, well, let's do that. But if you think about it, really, right? It really is smart to go. And what I love about bringing solutions rather than problems is I'm going to only bring you solutions that I actually agree with or am willing to do or like. So I'm really giving myself the opportunity to direct the ship a little bit.
Right. There you go. That's called agency, baby. That's called agency. You bring the solution that you're willing to do. That plays to your strengths.
That ambiguity, while it is very, very frustrating to not know if you're doing a good job or how to do a good job or whatever, I think maybe a mindset shift of instead of being confused about what your job is and looking for somebody else to bring the answers, if you're like, I see what the overarching goal is because I read the job description, I know what I'm, fundamentally what I'm here for, here's how I think it should be done. So bring that solution or a series of solutions, all of which you agree with and are willing to do and feel like you could do a really great job at. And then you have the opportunity to be seen as a leader, taking initiative. And when they agree to whatever solution that it is that you come to the conclusion of, you actually get to feel better about yourself. And when your self-worth is tied to it, it's a positive thing because not only did I do a really good job, I'm the one that even decided what the dang job was going to be to begin with.
There you go. I mean, and also too, it is really about trying to find the agency no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Because so often, for whatever reason, there isn't a lot of orientation and clarity at work for many different reasons, as we've talked about. Yeah. And so even though it shouldn't be your responsibility to figure out what you're supposed to be doing, it just might have fallen into your lap. I mean, and again, to know the distinction, I shouldn't have to do this, but I am going to do it because I'm not going to sit here like a bump on a log and just be miserable or just trying to figure out, looking at everyone, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm going to figure it out for myself. Something that kind of makes sense based on the job description, based on what the company thinks, maybe a little research overall, just to kind of figure out what makes sense for you to be doing. Yeah. And then you have something to bump up against when it comes to the bosses who come with their little preferences or telling you contradictory stuff.
Yeah,
you can say,
that goes.
Yeah, and then you can say, well, actually, that goes against the bottom line of the sales. I mean, I understand that's what you prefer, but this is how it really contradicts the sale itself. So, what would you like?
Yeah. So, what's your ultimate goal? Do you want to be comfy and let me do what you say, or do you want me to get you the results? Because they're not one and the same.
Yeah. And if you have, like I said earlier, you don't focus on the conflict, you focus on the possible results that give you the conflict and what it could look like. Because a lot of times people are giving you what they want. They're not looking at the picture, the end result, because that's your job. Your job is to work it. Your job is to do it. Their job is to tell you what to do, but they're not thinking about what it could look like at the end. And so it's up to you to say unfortunately, you're the one who has to say, look, this is what it looks like at the end if I do it your way.
Yeah. But I think you also have to know what's within your realm and what's not. Like what belongs to you, what doesn't. Stay in your lane a little bit and only try to control what you actually can control. Because I think that was a lot of our biggest issue. And I say ours, like collectively,
Mm-hmm.
of all
Across
the
the
people that
entire
were
job.
in,
Mhm.
all the people that were in this position, because there was such ambiguity and so many different chiefs, it was like, it left it open for everybody to individually be like, well, what I really want the job to be is this. Well, it's like,
Yeah.
that's great, but that's not what the role was ever even intended. What?
Yeah.
No, and we
I
can't
was
just
trying to
make it
change
so
it
for
all
you.
the time.
You
I
were
was
the
trying to,
worst of it, actually. You
but
were
I
like,
hated what the
actually,
job was.
I signed up for this and I know it, but I think it's dumb. So can I do it this way instead? And also, I don't like what you said. And ultimately, it was like, well, sister, you probably don't need to work here then.
Right. And
This is
so I
not the job for
stopped,
you.
you know,
Yeah,
and
you had to like
I had
one day
to.
the
So
light bulb went off.
to give Lynnae just a little bit of background on that. So we traveled full time, right? So
wow.
that was harder for some of us than others, right? Like that pushed me so far out of my comfort zone. I was
Yeah.
always depleted, and because I just need more charging time, right? So that was hard for me. Also, though, I really do blame, and I'll take responsibility for that. I tried to change the job. I tried to change it a
Right.
lot, right?
Not that it didn't need
truly,
to happen, but it just
I was-
wasn't yours to control.
I was trying to get a different job, but since they weren't letting that happen, I was like, I'm going to try and change this job is what I was doing to make it palatable. Like, if you want me to stay, I need to not be traveling 4 to 7 days a week, right? So this is, I'm just going to put it out there and take it or leave it. And they took it for a little while and they're like, leave it. Now go travel, 15 days straight, always, So it was just, I don't know. It was a thing, but I blame it though on that it was so like, I don't know what the fuck this job is. You know what I mean? Like so it was like, if everyone's going to do it completely different, because we all did do it completely different in so many ways.
Yeah, because we were all of these preferences from go make this guy over here happy. This guy over here was like
so
50 different
Yeah.
guys across the country. So everybody had a different person that they were listening to. But then they were
3 to 4
comparing
at
us
a time.
all against each other, trying to rack and stack results when we're all playing a different game. How do you win when you're not even playing the same game?
Yeah, we were all doing a different job with different expectations. And it was, to me, it was like, okay, well, if this is just going to be whatever it's going to be, then I'm going to try and change what it's going to be.
Makes sense to me.
I came with the solutions, right? I was like, I don't understand this. Here's my solution. And sometimes they took it and sometimes they left it,
Yeah.
And
that happens.
It does. And so that in itself was just so much. But what ended up happening is that I was burned out most of the time. I was burning the candle at both ends. I was trying to literally make every single person happy. Yeah. And it was impossible.
That's
and the person who was the most unhappy was me, right?
Yeah. That's the problem. We abandon our own happiness to complete those.
So what I want to know, so what I want to know, when someone feels like they are completely failing at work, right? And it is generally due to this, what's the very first step? Like how do you start to climb yourself out of that hole?
It's interesting, that wording. It's like, how can you fail something that can't be won?
Well, so you need a big mindset shift, right? I mean, like if you
don't know what it means to win, you're not failing.
Yeah.
Because you in order to know if you're failing, you have to know what it looks like to win.
Yeah.
So if you don't know so then I'm not going to say you can't say that you're failing. You can absolutely say you're feeling burnt out and tired or whatever, but you cannot say you're failing if you don't know what it means to win. If you don't even know what it looks like.
So it's just reframing that entirely.
It's absolutely reframing it completely. And then also starting from there, and then also thinking like we were talking about earlier, this whole idea is if you can kind of first clarify orientation that this workplace is confusing. I tried to make sense of it, and I'm exhausted now trying to make sense of it. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means I've been trying to figure it out, and I freaking can't. I'm exhausted trying to figure it out. Yeah. That's a different conversation to have in your head than, everyone else seems to know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing, therefore I'm the failure. No, it's not. It's like, no, this place is confusing. I've tried for years to make sense of this, and now I'm exhausted because it still doesn't make much sense to me. So just making those couple of mind shifts is very helpful to get it off of you. Because if you're saying it's you, this is me, this is my problem, whatever, that right there makes things really heavy. And we're in it, we have, our society is very much like, it's up to you to figure it out. It's up to you to figure it out. And it's like, yes. And like, yes, that's where the default is sometimes, because sometimes that's a situation that you're left with. You just want to try to make the most of it. That's true. You don't want to be a victim. But first and foremost, that job is supposed to tell you what to do. They're the ones who are supposed to let you know what the job looks like, what winning looks like, what complete work looks like. If they don't know in the back of your mind, actually they failed. Failed you, and then you're just doing the best you can in good faith to figure out how you can be useful in the situation as much as you can.
Yeah.
And I think if anything, the self-worth is more about that. It's like, am I making a good faith effort to be useful? Like, am I doing something here that can make a difference? It's making this job easier for other people, or my customers happy or something. That I can see getting your self-worth that way, because you have agency over that. I came in today. I did what I could. I really listened to my customers. I gave them what they wanted. They seemed to be happy. My boss was a jerk today to me, but my customers were really happy with me. So I think that really matters to me. Looking for other ways to feel good about yourself in ways that the goalposts can't be switched around so much is what I think.
Yeah. My first instinct in like, what do you do if you're in this scenario would be like, get out, go get another job. Like, this is not the place for you. But the fact of the matter is, if it's not you, it's going to be the next guy. Somebody is going to fill this role and be stuck with this problem of ambiguity. Or, while that's true, you could go to the next place and just have a different set of ambiguity in what that role is. It's right. Because this is not a one company problem. It's not a one leader problem.
That's right.
It's a leadership issue that is not always addressed. So with that being said, if the answer is not immediately to run, the first thing we're going to do is shift our mindset, control what we can, get our self-worth from those things that we can actually control, what we have agency over. But then what? Then how do you continue to make a difference in a company? Do you set your own parameters? Do you give yourself your own measuring stick on how you measure your success? Do we throw the boss's expectations out the window? What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, again, that's kind of an assessment part of it, right? It's like trying to figure out like what are the reference points to the job that make it that are really related to what your job is and what it isn't, right? So yes, there's the formal job description, as we talked about earlier, figuring out like where the job came from, how to even started it, what people had said in the past about other people who have done the job and what was helpful, all those things, kind of gathering those informations. Also looking at just the company overall, asking your boss questions about like, where's the department going? Like, what is the department doing in this whole agency? Like, what are we supposed to be doing? What's the engine that we drive? What happens if we fail? Who gets on our case if we fail, sort of thing. To give you an idea of what the department does and what they're supposed to be doing can give you some information about what you could be doing. But yeah, it is really about saying to yourself, okay, so this place is confusing. I don't have the support I need to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm going to figure this out myself, one bit at a time. I'm going to get myself worth from that. Look at me. I'm figuring it out myself. Like, hey, I'm not looking around going, oh, poor, what was me? I'm saying I'll take a moment and I'll be like, figure it out myself. I'm doing this research. I'm asking different people, figuring things out myself. That does matter. And all you keep saying to yourself is that I showed up in good faith, that my clients are happy. If, like you said in sales, my clients are happy. You can also tell from yourself too. Like if you go internal, it's like, I really thought about this thing and I did it and it seemed to work out okay. Okay. My boss didn't notice, but I noticed because I worked hard on that and that came out pretty good, that sort of thing. You might have to forego getting the outside validation, especially when you have an environment that is confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just can't go by that.
That's really hard. Yeah, I think that's really hard for people. And so I guess that then what we need people to think about is, all right, you tried to figure it out with your boss. You went to them with some solutions, and now we're still kind of stuck here with, you still don't know for sure where you stand. So find ways, right, is what you're saying. Find ways to validate yourself and try not to need that. If you need that, you might need to go on the hunt for a new job, because it might not be something that you're ever going to achieve there. But again, I think that the mindset on this is huge. Or if you want to go down fighting, like try your hardest. Bring this to,
I mean, there's no shame in asking for it, right? Yeah. To say, hey, I actually need to feel some validation that I'm doing a good job. Here's what I see and what I've given. What do you see? And go and ask for that feedback. if it's not freely being given to you. And I think that a lot of people, instead of asking for it, they just sit in the negativity of like, oh, I still don't know. Like, I still don't know if it was good or whatever, because they're so busy and they kept moving. But you have to be the one to stop and say, hey, I need some more gas in this tank to keep going. And my gas looks like validation. Can you help me?
Yeah. I think something we have to also put on the table is about expectations, because we can have an expectation how things really should be, but then we have to really deal with what is.
Yeah.
Right.
Expectation versus reality.
Exactly. And so that's something also I work with people about, the expectations they have in their workplace. If they're saying, my boss should do this and that and the other thing, it's like, but are they? That conflict alone is going to keep you mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have this expectation and they're not meeting it, you're just going to be mad the whole time. So in other words, part of it also is about adjusting your expectations to what you actually see. And this is nothing too. It's like, there's a difference between what people say and what people do. You adjust yourself to what people do. Adjust yourself
Great
to what people
advice.
actually do. Because people say all sorts of stuff for whatever reason. And they may mean it. But their actions will tell you something different. Go by that.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to like confront somebody and be like, well, you said this and you did that. Don't even confront them. You just be like, oh, I see that. I see that you say this, but you do this. I'm going to go over here with what you do and clock it.
Yes.
And then start developing your relationship to work based on things like that. Not on, a lot less on like the self-worth or like trying to get people to be something that they're not. Because I know you can ask, like you said earlier, you've asked people to give you feedback and they didn't. And the thing is, they didn't, not just because they didn't like you. It's like they just don't give feedback to anybody. That's not what they can do. They don't have the skill set. So now what do you do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the expectation.
I've dealt with that. Yeah. Like not ever getting feedback from a boss. I'm like, this is horrid. Like I literally, from day to day, she could hate me or love me. And I can't tell from this person. And that is really difficult. But what I will tell you from what you were just saying, I have learned this lesson because I'm judgy. You know what I mean? I have expectations of every single person, like, and a lot of us do. And I don't think of myself as a hateful, judgmental person, but like, I have expectations of all the people around me, like I want them to behave a certain way. I want them to be supportive. I want them to be, you know what I mean? Like that's just human nature, I think. And what I've had to learn is that people are going to disappoint you, right? They might say that they're going to do something and not do it, but their actions are going to disappoint you in some way. But does it affect you? You know what I mean? Like get over your expectations of other people, especially your boss. Like get over your expectation. I need my boss to, when it's raise time, to be open to giving me a raise, I'll be really
that's
sad.
An important one.
But but like if they're just not a great communicator with the team, it's like find your way to get the information for yourself and get over how they, you know what I mean? Like that's always also been a hard thing for me, how people treat other people on the team at work. I'm like, this makes me irrationally mad and I can't do my job correctly because of it, right? So it's like I love that you touched on that. You have to get over these expectations. If you're confused, big deal. Let's figure this out. But if you just have expectations that don't align and it's making you unhappy at work, that is your expectation not being met a big enough problem to leave? Otherwise, figure out how to not let that bother you, because you work with so many people. You could just be mad all day.
Yeah, well, I think you have to determine if your expectation is grounded in your own preferences or an actual necessity of that job and position to determine if you need to adjust your expectations or if you need to adjust your surroundings.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't work for a particular leader. And Mandy, in your case, you found out in the interview, this isn't a great fit. We don't always find out in the interview that's how things are going to be here. But when you know and you're like, okay, these things, I can see reality. This is who they are, how they are. I can't change this, but I know that I need this. Can I adjust to what I'm actually getting, or do I have to find myself a leader somewhere else that's going to accommodate what I have to be successful?
It's true. I mean, all all that really makes sense to me. And what's also true, it's like the way work is happening right now, it's not easy just to get up and leave anymore.
No, it's
just
not.
isn't.
And that's why I'm saying like that gut reaction of like, go.
Yeah. Yeah,
you can't just do that.
Most people can't do that anymore. They have to keep what they have. You know, they're not trustafarians. They have bills to pay. They have, you know, whatever. So it is about trying to figure out how to make this where you are work. And I would say, I guess overall, to me, it'd be about adjusting your expectations to how things actually are, not how you want them to be, but how they actually are. Again, based on what you've actually seen, how people actually act, and try to orient yourself around developing the job and the work itself. Even if your boss is telling you, I like blue, not gray, sort of thing. It's like, yeah, I hear you. But it's like orienting yourself around the actual job itself helps you give a sense of steadiness, because now you're making decisions based on the work itself, not on someone's preference. So what makes it hard is when you're trying to figure out what everyone wants. That running around, that's the stuff that makes you crazy. But if you can kind of like focus around the work itself, and even if somebody gives you blowback, like, I don't like that, you could say, well, actually, this helps sales. This helps sales.
You'd be able to defend your work and why you do what you do and how you do it.
I did this, and maybe you didn't like it, but I actually got 2 sales today. So, it's like that kind of shuts people up right away, or whatever it is, or whatever you're trying to say. So, if you focus on your work, I think you have a better chance not only of your own steadiness and your own sense of agency, but also, like I said, it's like if somebody comes up to you and says they don't like something, you have something to defend it with that is based on the work itself. It's not based on your personal preference, and then you just have a bunch of preferences, and then it's a power play, right? But if you base it on the work itself, you can at least say, this is my judgment based on the work itself, based on what I know my job is, based on what my client needed or wanted. This is what I did, and this is why I did it, and this is how it turned out. And even if you, because the thing is, even if it didn't turn out well, you can at least say, this is what I did and why, based on the job, and you can defend it. And if you're in a performance evaluation moment and they're trying to throw it back at you, it's like, yes, I made these decisions. Are you telling me I can never be wrong? Are you telling me that everyone has to be perfect? Are you telling me everyone's perfect? Is that what you're telling me? But at least if you had that, if you thought about what you were doing, about the work itself, you have something to stand on.
Yeah, there's a reason.
There's a reason.
You did what you did. You're not like, well, I don't know. You didn't tell me what to do, so I just did something. You can say, I did this.
Yeah, I thought it through.
I wasn't given direction, so I made a decision. Here's why I did what I did, and here's the results. It either worked well, you're welcome, or it didn't work so well, so I pivoted, and we're going to do it differently now.
Yeah. And then you have something to work with too. So if someone tries to blame you, it's like, well, you didn't tell me what was right, so I don't know how I could be wrong. But these are the decisions I made that made the most sense to me, and that alone, I think, and I know for my own self, that really helped me in those moments when I was up against someone who was trying to make it sound like I was wrong. It's like, I'm not wrong. You didn't like it, but I'm not wrong because the decisions I made was based on something. I didn't guess. I figured out what this job is. Right.
That's huge to just know why you're doing things too when you're in such a confusing situation. If you know why you did what you did when there was no clarity on how you were supposed to do it, that is all that matters. And the delivery of it not being defensive, but fact-based, like this is what happened. This is why I did this. Would you like me to do it differently? I would actually like to sit and break down my entire job description if you'd like to tell me your
of that direction.
Yes,
actually.
But at the end of the day, I loved this conversation. I think that what we want is if people are exhausted, right? Because we've all been exhausted, beating our heads against the wall in a job. If you're exhausted right now, there are lots of steps that you can take to try and ease that exhaustion and make it so that if this is a job that you can save, right? Or if it's just too big of a toll on you because you've tried and tried and tried to get the clarity and it's not a possibility where you're at. So if you've listened to this and something stood out to you that made you go, okay, like my light bulb moment, this is what I'm going to try. We would love for you to share it in the comments because it'll help other people. But thank you so much, Lynnae, for coming here and talking to us about this, because I think that there are probably a lot of people who didn't know that this was their problem, right? They didn't realize.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. They didn't even know that this is a problem.
Because they just felt like they were the problem, right? Or they're just like, my job sucks, right? But when you can pinpoint the problem, there's a chance that you can fix it, right? Or
something you can actually do and you have agency over. That makes a huge difference, because when you're exhausted and don't know what's happening, you just feel like you're just backed in a corner and there's nothing you can do. But if you can actually make a distinction about figuring out, oh, this is what it is. I actually don't know what my job is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now you can start thinking about how you can go about finding it. So yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
I love it.
All right. So will you tell everybody where they can find you, where they can learn more about you or learn more of your expertise?
Absolutely. Go to my website, LynnaeBrown.com. That's LYNNAE Brown, like the color.com, where you can find out what I offer, my services I offer there. I do orientation sessions. I'm also having a class this fall called Belong to Yourself at Work, which is a class, a month-long class for people who want to just figure out how to have a better relationship with their job, that they have to keep it. That's in October. And I'm also on LinkedIn a lot. I've been posting there for months, and I always talk about, I'm on there every day. I'm always talking about something about work and how to belong to yourself in a job that, that's just like what we were just talking about, something that doesn't feel, where you don't feel like you belong, how to get your job to belong, how to get your work to belong.
Yeah.
I love it. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
great.
so much for joining us today. This is a big conversation. I hope that it resonated with our listeners. And again, I know, Mandy, you already said this, but if you guys have any comments or if there was anything groundbreaking or earth-shattering for you, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
All right.
Thanks
Well,
so
thank
much.
you, Lynnae, and we'll see all you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.